All right, hello and welcome into Sports Talk on a Budget. It is January 19th, Thursday, January 19th is a pretty nice afternoon up here in Utah. Got some snow earlier in the week, so a little cold. We got some snow on the ground here, but obviously, like I said, January 19th, big weekend in the NFL, big weekend for sports. Obviously, the divisional round, the top 8 teams, top 4 teams left in both divisions. That'll be a big part of the show. But there's some other NFL topics to talk about before we dive into the divisional round. So let me go ahead and look at our couple of topics for the day's show. So the first topic is going to be two big time MVP level and actually have one MVP's quarterbacks could potentially be on the move this offseason. That is Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson. Where do they end up? Do they stay where they're at? Do they end up at another team? I will speculate and talk about that those situations there. And then after that, we will take a deep dive into my divisional round breakdown. Break down all 8 games, then I'll give you my total breakdown, like I said, and I'll give you my picks on who I think is going to win or at least cover the spread. So we'll do the picks in all 4 of those games against the spread as well. With that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the topics. And like I said, we're going to start with the first topic, and that topic is going to be where does Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson end up? We're actually going to start off with Lamar Jackson. And Lamar Jackson is an unrestricted free agent going into this offseason because him and Baltimore were able to land on a deal this past offseason. It was back and forth. Lamar Jackson was his own agent, which is not exactly recommended, but he was trying to do his own thing. Ravens gave him a couple offers. He rejected those. Nothing really came to fruition. They went into the season as he went into the season as his last year without an extension, and he's going to be an unrestricted free agent going into this offseason. And now they are in the offseason. So once free agency opens, he will be an unrestricted free agent. But the Baltimore Ravens do have the right to franchise tag Lamar Jackson and keep him there for another year under the franchise tag. And the franchise tag for the quarterback is actually the highest of any player in the league. I want to say it's like 37.5 million or 38 million, close to 40 million just for 1 year to franchise a quarterback. And obviously, if you've watched the Baltimore Ravens and followed them at all, and obviously just followed the NFL, that has been a big talking point all season. Is okay, well, obviously we knew Lamar Jackson would play well, but he gets injured about 7 weeks ago. He hasn't come back yet. And the speculation has been, okay, well, is he going to risk the injury because he's not under contract? Does he have any leverage? Would he go out there and get injured again? Would he lose all his leverage? And you could see that there was a back and forth and kind of a disconnect between Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, every week we saw John Harbaugh go to the podium and they would ask him, okay, hey, Lamar Jackson still listed as questionable for Sunday's game or Saturday's game, whatever they were playing. Is he going to play this weekend? And John Harbaugh never really gave a straight answer. And you just never really got anything out of John Harbaugh. And then even going into the playoff game this past weekend against the Cincinnati Bengals, John Harbaugh wasn't able to give a clear answer. And then Lamar Jackson just came out I think it was last Thursday, and just kind of said, yo, I'm not 100%. I'm not ready to go. My knee is still messed up. There's still swelling. I'm still limping around. I am not ready to play, and I am going to rule myself out for this game since the Baltimore Ravens aren't willing to rule me out. He tweeted that. He put it up on Instagram, up on Twitter, and kind of just put to bed all the speculation and rumors on if he was actually able to play in that game on Sunday night. And so obviously that's not something you want to see from your organization. Usually your organization, you want to have kind of control of that. And I don't know if the Ravens just lost control or maybe they thought the injury wasn't as severe as Lamar did. But either way, Lamar Jackson did not seem happy in his tweets. And you could tell that he wasn't happy with the organization. You could tell that he wasn't happy with having to be the guy to say, hey, I'm not healthy. I can't play this Sunday. I'm not going to risk it. It's not worth that. And there was plenty of support out there. RG3 tweeted out that that was basically what ended his career, was going out there and risking it for the team in his rookie season when they were playing in the playoffs against the Seattle Seahawks. He injured his knee even worse in that game, and that was basically the end of his career as we knew it, as the potential that we saw that he could have as the Heisman Trophy winner out of Baylor. So it's very interesting with that situation there with Lamar Jackson. But also, even more information has actually come available just today. And the Baltimore Ravens have fired offensive coordinator Greg Roman. Now, Greg Roman was basically the architect of this offense that they've been running under Lamar Jackson. He was the guy that was able to tailor the offense to Lamar Jackson's strengths. Obviously, moving around in the pocket, running, RPOs, things like that. Greg Roman was the architect of that offense and tailoring that offense for Lamar Jackson, and he is no longer going to be there. Some people think that maybe that is kind of an olive branch to Lamar Jackson, like, hey, you know what? We think you can run a more pro style system. We don't need to tailor this offense to you. So we're going to have to get rid of Greg Roman and bring in somebody who's more of a pro style offensive coordinator. I don't seem to think that. I think it's more the opposite. When you fire Greg Roman, who's literally spent the last 3, 4 years of his career tailoring an offense to your strengths, and then you fire him, I don't see that as an olive branch to Lamar Jackson. I see that as more of, okay, well, if Lamar Jackson isn't here, we're not going to be able to run this offense that Greg Roman tailored for him with whoever we get, unless it's going to be like Justin Fields or Jalen Hurts or someone with that kind of ability. And obviously, they're not going to get Jalen Hurts, and it would be kind of a long shot to get Justin Fields, obviously. So maybe I think this is kind of Baltimore saying, okay, well, we're not going to have this quarterback that you made this offense for. We're going to have to go out and either draft a guy, get a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, or a guy like Derek Carr, who's obviously not tailored to run Lamar Jackson's offense and doesn't have the skills that Lamar Jackson has to run this offense and run this offense really well as what Lamar Jackson has done. So I think that's more of I think that's more of a sign that the Ravens are preparing to move on potentially from Lamar Jackson. I think what happens is you can't just let Lamar Jackson walk in free agency and get nothing for him if you're the Baltimore Ravens, because he is a very valuable asset. He's a top 10 quarterback in this league, and when he is healthy, his skill set and what he does is unstoppable for defenses. It's unstoppable for defenses. And any team you play, you don't maybe not an advantage in quarterback, but you have a decided advantage in just scheme. Is just because no defense is going to be able to stop the quickness and the suddenness and just the skill set that Lamar Jackson has. So you can't just let him walk away for nothing. I think the Baltimore Ravens will franchise Lamar Jackson, but I don't think Lamar Jackson is willing to play under the franchise tag. So I think this is just going to be kind of a hold. They'll franchise him and look for trade partners. Is what would be my speculation. Is they'll look for trade partners after they franchise him. Teams I think that could be top favorites, and there's actually betting favorites on BetMGM and Caesars if you actually really want to bet on that. Some people have. I'm not exactly onto that because you just never know with franchises, especially like the Baltimore Ravens, who are just more of a traditional franchise that don't like to show their hand at all. But some of the favorites I think are the New York Jets. I think you would do really well there with Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, and then obviously when Brees Hall gets healthy, the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, you have Drake London. You have Kyle Pitts. So there's some options there. I think the Raiders would be interesting. I don't know how he would do in Josh McDaniel's system. That is usually more for a traditional quarterback. And then maybe the Carolina Panthers as well with guys like DJ Moore, and then you have some help in the backfield as well. So I think those are my four favorites to land Lamar Jackson if he is gonna not be in Baltimore next year. I don't think that's the case. I think everything that we've seen lately is kind of pointing towards Lamar Jackson not being in Baltimore, and I really think that the firing of Greg Roman this morning also points to that as well. And then we'll move over to the other MVP quarterback, and that's Tom Brady. And obviously the situation is different with Tom Brady and Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson 26, Tom Brady's gonna be 46 before next year even starts. So for me, it looks obvious that he doesn't want to be in Tampa Bay. And Tampa Bay also had some big news this morning where uh, they fired Byron Leftwich, their offensive coordinator for Tampa Bay. So some people think that's an olive branch for Tom Brady to stay, but Tom Brady and Byron Leftwich got really close these last 3 years. So I don't know if he's going to want to learn a whole new offense in that system, or I'm sorry, in that on that team in that area. I think if you look at this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team, outside of Tom Brady, who obviously is old, the rest of the team's getting old. They're older on defense. Their offense was not good at all. They have no running game at all. Their offensive line was beat up all year. We'll see if they can get healthy going into next year. Leonard Fournette, it looks like some of those miles are ticking on him. And you got to remember with running backs, I know Leonard Fournette's in his late 20s, but usually like early 30s is kind of like the top end for running backs, especially when you're a guy like Leonard Fournette, who got all the carries in high school, obviously, got all the carries at LSU, got all the carries early on in Jacksonville, and lately has been the guy for these last 3 years with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. Now they've had other guys in there, but Leonard Fournette gets the bulk of the carries and gets the bulk of the downs for Tampa Bay, and probably just taking a toll on his body. He was definitely not the same running back this year. I do like Rashad White, but he's more of a receiving threat. I don't know how great he is running between the tackles, and he wasn't great this year, but their offensive line was obviously banged up. And that defense is not nearly as good. That defense is outside the top 15 in both rush yards and pass yards per game, and obviously total defense per game as well. So they're getting older, and they're just not playing at the same kind of level that we saw them play, obviously in the Super Bowl year and even last year as well. So the defense is not there. So if Tom Brady is going to extend his career, it's going to be in somewhere. It's going to be somewhere else. But for me, if you watch Tom Brady this year, yes, he led the league with the most completions. He had the most attempts. That's also why he had the most completions, because he had the most attempts. But you could just tell, obviously, he's in decline. He's 45 years old. Of course, he's going to be in decline. But the decline really showed this year. And yes, he still can throw a decent deep ball. He still can throw a decent out route. He still has the arm strength to play in this league. But for me, he's never obviously been a mobile quarterback, but he's able to move well within the pocket. Guys like him and Drew Brees and Peyton Manning were never mobile quarterbacks that were going to scare you running the ball. But what they did really well is they moved laterally well within the pocket, whether that was stepping up in the pocket, stepping away from pressure, moving just a little bit. Yes, it looked like they were moving in like freaking in mud, but they would be able to move well and avoid sacks and get the ball off. And they also obviously got the ball off really quick. And this year, Tom Brady was not able to do that. It was basically like as soon as there was any kind of pressure, he was dirting the ball, he was throwing it away, or he was just kind of just falling in the fetal position and taking the sack. So he gives up on plays a lot quicker than he ever has in his entire career, and the velocity isn't there on his throws anymore. Yes, he still can throw make a lot of those throws, but that deep out route he's not really great at anymore. That kind of deep comeback, but it's on the other hash. He's not great at that anymore either. So, and obviously, any team he's going to go to is going to need to have basically like a five, top 10 offensive line, because he's even less mobile than he ever was, and he never was a mobile quarterback. And so it's going to be tough. In my opinion, I think he should retire. Obviously, you're 45 years old. You've proven everybody wrong that you can play as long as you pretty much want. You can win without Belichick, which you did with Tampa Bay Buccaneers, winning 2 division titles and a Super Bowl title. So you showed that you could do it on your own. You weren't just a Belichick system quarterback. And look at what Belichick. He's a under 500 coach since you've left. So you've obviously kind of separated yourself, and you're not just always going to be Brady Belichick going into the Hall of Fame. There's a separation there now. So there's obviously nothing left to prove. Some of the favorites that could land him, the Raiders, there was speculation that he was going to go to the Dolphins last year after retiring. The Panthers, there's speculation right now that he could go there and stay in the NFC South, which is still the worst division in football. So we could probably go to the Panthers and win that division again, obviously just from another team. Each one of these teams isn't the greatest offensive lines. Each one of these teams needs help. Panthers are looking for a coach. They don't have a lot of offensive weapons. They have DJ Moore, Terrace Marshall Jr. is not bad. You got like Chuba Hubbard, and I can't remember the other one right now, but he's pretty good. But nothing that you would expect him to want. The Raiders, obviously, you could reunite with Josh McDaniels and play with Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfro, if they're all still there. But and obviously Josh Jacobs in the backfield, but Josh Jacobs is a free agent. I can see him walking away from the Raiders. And in my opinion, Josh McDaniels is more of an offensive coordinator than a head coach. So do you really want to go to the Raiders for 1 year, play in the toughest division in football with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert in your division? Oh, and Josh Allen and Joe Burrow also in your conference, and an up and coming guy in Trevor Lawrence, and maybe still Lamar Jackson as well. So that I don't think he would do. In my opinion, I think he should retire. I think he probably gives it 1 more year, probably to the Dolphins, but I don't really know exactly where he could land. In my opinion, like I said, I think he should retire. But let's go ahead and move on to our other topic of the day, and that is going to be my ultimate divisional round breakdown. And we're going to start with the first game on Saturday, and that is the Jaguars at the Kansas City Chiefs. And the Chiefs are currently an 8.5 point favorite. Some places you can get this for 9, some places you can get this for 8. But right now, at least on ESPN and MGM Bet, is at 8.5. And obviously, we all watched Saturday night, and the Jaguars come back from 27 down after 4 interceptions from Trevor Lawrence and come back on the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, what kind of mindset are they in? Are they happy to be there in the divisional round because no one saw them winning their division. Really, no one saw them in the divisional round. Obviously, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, are they happy to be there, or are they hungry to get further? And I think they're hungry to get further. You have Doug Peterson, who's your head coach, who's already won a Super Bowl. You've had Trevor Lawrence, who's competed for championships at every level he's ever played at, whether that's high school, college, and now he's going to want to compete for championships at a pro level. And he's in the top 8 in the NFL right now, top 4 in his conference. So you can kind of see he is competing for championships and has already won a division championship. So I don't think they're going to be content to be where they're at in the divisional round. I think they're going to be hungry to get even further, and this game could end up being a shootout. Both teams' defenses are outside the top 15 in total pass yards per game. They're not the greatest defenses. Now, Kansas City can show up at times. Chris Jones can get pressure on the quarterback and kind of maybe force Trevor Lawrence into some bad plays. And then if you look at the other side, you do have Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker for the Jacksonville Jaguars defense that might be able to pressure Patrick Mahomes and maybe get him off his spots, make him make some mistakes. Obviously, that's tough with Patrick Mahomes. He's the best quarterback in the league, and he has really cleaned up his turnovers and mistakes this year as well. That would be kind of a thing that would hit him a lot over the last couple of seasons. Not a big issue because he was still the top quarterback in the league probably these last 2 seasons, but every now and then you could see him kind of have a mistake or a turnover prone game. That is no longer the case. He has definitely cleaned that up and he is taking care of the ball. For me, obviously, I love the story with Jacksonville. Obviously, the huge comeback against the Chargers was great. Winning the division was great. They won, I think, 7 games down the stretch. I think they're won 7 in a row at this point. Trevor Lawrence is undefeated in his football career on Saturdays. That goes from high school and at Clemson. He never lost the game on Saturday. The 2 games he lost was in the playoff. One was a Friday night, and one was the Monday night in the college football playoff championship against Joe Burrow and that 2019 LSU team. So he is undefeated on Saturdays. But also, if you look at the other side, the Kansas City Chiefs under Patrick Mahomes have never not made it to the conference championship round. So every year that Patrick Mahomes has been the starter there, he's made it to the AFC championship game. So one of those streaks is going to come to an end. In my opinion, I think it's going to be Trevor Lawrence's undefeated streak on Saturday. I think the Jaguars can cover. So if I'm picking against the spread, I'm going to take the Jaguars plus 8.5. But I think the Chiefs win the game. So money line bet obviously would be on the Chiefs. Pick against the spread is Jaguars plus 8.5. I think this could be a very good game. I think the Chiefs kind of pull away towards the end there. Maybe not fully cover the spread, but definitely pull away and kind of just put this game away at the middle of the fourth quarter. But go ahead and give me the Jaguars plus 8.5 and Chiefs money line bet. And then we'll move to the Saturday night game, which is going to be over in the NFC, and that is going to be an NFC East battle, and that is the Giants at the Eagles, and the Eagles are currently a 7.5 point favorite in this game. Now, just like Trevor Lawrence was coming off of that performance last week, where he had 4 interceptions and then 4 touchdowns, a bounce back performance, we have Daniel Jones here who's coming off his best performance, probably of his career against the Minnesota Vikings. He had 300 plus yards passing. He had over 70 yards rushing on the ground, 3 plus total touchdowns. He had a great game against the Minnesota Vikings last weekend. Can he continue this against this Philadelphia Eagles team, who is 2-0 against this Giants team? Now, I know that Week 18 game against the Giants were playing their backups, and the Eagles were kind of playing it close to the vest because that was the first game back for Jalen Hurts, so they weren't playing their full offense. They weren't doing their full offensive game plan that they usually do with Jalen Hurts. That is going to be a big key here. Is Jalen Hurts 100% and is that shoulder 100%? Because if that's the case, the Eagles are going to break out all the stops and they're going to have their complete offense and complete offensive game plan available for them. And they were the number 2 rushing team in the league this year, with obviously Jalen Hurts rushing the ball a lot, Miles Sanders running the ball a lot. And if you look at this Giants team, they were 27th in rush defense. So I think that's a big mismatch there. Is obviously the Eagles are the number 2 rushing offense in the league, and the Giants are the number 27 rushing defense in the league. So that's not a good matchup, obviously, for the Giants, and that was kind of what did them in the first game. Because if you watch the first game, the Giants and the Eagles went to New York and just put it to the Giants, both in the air and on the ground, and the Giants really had no chance in that game. And that is really the game that you kind of have to go off of, because this last game was the Giants backups versus the Eagles at like 50% quarterback, 50% game plan. Not really. Obviously, they needed to win to get the 1 seed, but they figured they would win because they were playing the Giants' backups. So that is a huge key there. And can Daniel Jones is going to have to make some plays. He's going to have to make some plays against this Philadelphia Eagles defense to keep the Philadelphia Eagles offense on the field. Maybe some long extended drives. Obviously, Saquon Barkley is going to have to be huge. So that's going to be a key there as well. Is can this Giants offense with a bunch of kind of no-name receivers? Darius Slayton's probably their best receiver. Hodgins played well against the Vikings last weekend, but really their offense runs through Saquon Barkley, and he's going to have a big day against this Eagles defense. And Daniel Jones is going to have to protect the ball because if he turns over the ball once, especially twice, this game could get out of control because I just don't like the matchup for the Giants against this Eagles team. And you saw it in that first game. It's just a mismatch. It's just a mismatch. The Giants defense is a better pass defense, but what the Eagles like to do is they like to run the ball to set up the pass, and the Giants defense is not good against the run. So, like I said, I don't love this matchup. I know it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a season, and this will be the third time that the Eagles beat the Giants if they do this season. But I mean, the 49ers didn't make it look too tough to beat the Seahawks 3 times in a season, so maybe it's not that hard. So my pick here, I'm gonna go ahead and roll with the Eagles, and I'm gonna take them to win and cover the spread. So give me the Eagles -7.5 in this game. And they'll move back over to the AFC, and this is going to be the Sunday afternoon game. Basically, it's a 1 p.m. kickoff Eastern time, so 10 on the West, and obviously the other times. And currently, right now, the Bills are a 5.5 point favorite in this game. Now it's moved to 5, it moved all the way down to 4.5 a couple days ago, and now it's back up to 5.5. So it may move. It may move to 6 or it may move to 5 before game time. But currently, right now, it is Bills -5.5 in this game. And obviously, some big question marks start with the Bengals' offensive line and their banged up offensive line, basically. And their guard, Alex Kappa, and then their offensive tackle, Jonah Williams, are both questionable for this game. If they're able to go, that would be huge for the Bengals because Alex Kappa is a Pro Bowl player and Jonah Williams is a very serviceable tackle who has came in for Lyle Collins ever since Lyle Collins went on the IR. So they definitely could use that there. They could use that protection for Joe Burrow, obviously. And when those two are in, they're going to be able to run the ball better with Joe Mixon and Shamazi P. Ryan. They haven't been able to run the ball well these last couple of weeks with their backups in and with Williams and Kappa out. If both those guys are able to go, that's huge for the Cincinnati Bengals because obviously, like I said, it helps you protect Joe Burrow and it helps you run the ball more effectively, which makes them a more balanced team and a lot more dangerous team as well. And then a huge question mark for the Buffalo Bills is just the turnovers. Josh Allen has been very turnover prone. He had 3 turnovers last week against the Miami Dolphins. Could have had 5. He actually fumbled the ball 3 times, but only once wasn't recovered by Miami and actually was returned for a touchdown and gave Miami the really only lead in that game. He's actually had 7 turnovers in his last 5 games and 14 in his last 10. So he has obviously been turnover prone for this last stretch of the season. Josh Allen has, and if he's turnover prone against this Bengals team, this is not the Miami Dolphins with Skylar Thompson playing quarterback. This is the Cincinnati Bengals that were in the Super Bowl last year with Joe Burrow as quarterback, probably a top 3 quarterback in this league. They will not be able to overcome that kind of turnover game from Josh Allen and their offense against this Cincinnati team. So the Bills are definitely going to have to clean that up and make sure that they don't turn over the ball in this game, or it could get sideways for them and them looking a very promising season. They came into the season as the Super Bowl favorite. They were actually my pick to win the Super Bowl, and a lot of people's pick to win the Super Bowl. If you don't even get to the championship round, and that's because of Josh Allen's turnover proneness and just the lack of continuity on offense there, that would be a big disappointment for the Buffalo Bills this season. And another big question mark for me is what defense can generate pressure. Both these teams aren't really high in sacks, in total sacks for teams this year. Now, I do like the combination of Hendrickson and Hubbard for the Cincinnati Bengals, and they're finally healthy. They haven't been healthy together for a lot of the season. Now they're both finally healthy. We just saw Sam Hubbard run 98 yards on a fumble return last week, so he's healthier than we expected. That combination could get after Josh Allen, and that offensive line for the Buffalo Bills isn't great. They actually do let up a lot of pressure on Josh Allen. Josh Allen just doesn't get sacked a lot because he's elusive in the pocket. But a lot of times, if you get pressure on Josh Allen, that's where it leads to those turnovers and those mistakes. So can Cincinnati, Hendrickson, and Hubbard, can they get that kind of pressure? And then on the flip side, can the Buffalo Bills generate pressure? Obviously, they brought in Von Miller this past offseason to be that guy to generate pressure. He's on the IR. He's obviously not going to play. They blitzed Matt Milano a lot last week. Is he the guy that's going to be able to generate pressure for them? Is it going to be a guy like Ed Oliver? AJ Epinesa has been in and out of the lineup. He's been injured. Where is that guy that can generate consistent pressure on Joe Burrow, especially if Williams and Kappa aren't able to go? You better be able to get pressure against those backup offensive linemen. So that is a huge key there. Which defense and which front seven is able to get the opposing team's quarterback off their spot, make them uncomfortable, maybe get them on the ground. That could be huge there, especially if it's the Bengals against Josh Allen. Because usually when you get him off his spot and make him uncomfortable, that's when the turnovers start. And I think that's what happens in this game. I think Hendrickson and Hubbard have good games, are able to get Josh Allen off his spot, make him uncomfortable. I think Josh Allen has a couple turnovers in this game, whether it's a fumble and an interception, a couple interceptions, a couple of fumbles, but I think he has a couple of turnovers in this game. And I like the Bengals to cover in this game. So give me the Bengals plus 5.5. And actually, if you're betting money line, I like the Bengals as well. I think the Bengals win this game outright, but they definitely cover. So give me the Bengals plus 5.5 in this game. And then we'll go ahead and finish off with the last game of the weekend, and that is back to the NFC, and that'll be the Sunday night game, and that is the Cowboys at the 49ers. And currently the 49ers are the 4-point favorite. Now, this has gone to 4.5 in some places. It was still at 3.5 last night at other places, but currently right now in most places I'm finding it at -4. So that's the bet we're going to go with right now. And just like Daniel Jones we talked about earlier, Dak Prescott's coming off one of his best performances ever as a pro. 5 total touchdowns last week, 4 passing, 1 rushing, 143.3 passer rating in the game. He was unbelievable against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but key word there was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense is nowhere near the level of defense that the San Francisco 49ers defense is. And so that'll be a big question mark. Can Dak have a similar performance against a much better defense who can get pressure and make him uncomfortable as well? But a big thing for Dallas is also on their defensive side. Can they get pressure on Brock Purdy? Now Dallas was the top 5 team in sacks this year. So top 5, I think they finished at 4th. Top 5 team in sacks. Obviously, you have Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. They generate sacks in other ways as well. So this is a team that can get after the quarterback. And can they make Brock Purdy uncomfortable? Because if you've watched the games that Brock Purdy has started, a lot of teams haven't really made him uncomfortable and haven't gotten pressure on him. But Brock Purdy is also more mobile and elusive than most of us thought he was coming out of Iowa State. I thought he was more of a traditional pocket quarterback, but he can move. He's got some good movement in the pocket. He's got some good speed outside the pocket, and he actually throws well on the move as well. So Dallas is going to have to generate pressure, but they're not going to just generate pressure. You're going to have to get him uncomfortable and get him on the ground, or maybe see if you can force him to make some tight throws or some bad throws as well, throw across his body. See if you can put some kind of pressure on Brock Purdy with that top 5 sacks and pressures attack that you have for the Cowboys. That would be key there. And then obviously with Dallas's passing game, that is kind of the Achilles heel for this 49ers defense. They're 20th in pass defense. Their rush defense is top 5. I think they're number 2. They get a lot of pressure, obviously, with Nick Bosa, and you have Fred Warner who will come on blitzes, and just their front 7 is very stout, and they can get a lot of pressure on opposing teams' quarterbacks. But where you can get San Francisco's defense and where they are susceptible is in the back end in the pass game. Like I said, 20th ranked pass defense. Can Dak Prescott push the envelope and pass the ball down the field against this 49ers pass defense? CeeDee Lamb will be huge. Dalton Schultz was huge in the wild card game against Tampa Bay. Ferguson had a nice game. Tony Pollard out of the backfield. Noah Brown. T.Y. Hilton actually had a pretty good game for the Cowboys against Tampa Bay as well. So can they move the ball and can they throw the ball on this San Francisco pass defense, which like I said, is the most susceptible part of their defense? That'll be a huge key. For me, it comes down to just this San Francisco team has just way too much firepower. I mean, you just look at their offense: McCaffrey, Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Brock Purdy is playing really well. And their defense, I think, will generate enough pressure on Dak Prescott, which could turn him into a turnover machine at some points, which can happen to him at some times. I think this game is going to be close. I think it'll be a close game, but I still think the 49ers will win and cover. I think the Cowboys do take them to the brink, we'll go ahead and give me the 49ers -4 in this game, but I think this could be a really good game. Well, that was my show. Thank you for watching and listening. As I have said in past shows, I am doing a YouTube channel, so you can watch this podcast on YouTube, or if you prefer the audio version, you can listen to this podcast on places like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and basically any Audible, or basically anywhere you can get your podcast. Thank you again for watching and listening, and have a great day and enjoy your divisional round weekend in the NFL.